And we're live. Hey everybody, this morning we are brewing up a batch of Prost, which is our Munich Dunkel. It's a lager, it's a beer style that I really love. It has a lot of Munich malt in it, toasty, a little bit of dehusked roast malt in it. That dehusked roast malt kind of creates a smoother roast character. So there's a little bit of milk chocolate, slight coffee that rounds in behind it. Kind of a deep brown beer, super easy drinking, really approachable, really good with food. So it's kind of right in my range of what I like to make. Lagers are always fun to do, especially traditional lagers. That's really what we're going to be doing. Right now we're in a little bit early. Josh and Maggie aren't in yet. We've got the beautiful Dustin behind the camera. Right now I'm just recirculating the hot liquor tank to make sure. It's a large tank and holds a lot of water. We have 25 barrels in there. Each barrel is 31 gallons. And so sometimes when you're holding that hot water overnight, it can stratify the temperature. And so I'll have colder water on bottom than I do on top. And so I pull water off the bottom and recirculate it up to the top to get a uniform temperature all the way throughout. So anyways, I already have my salts and acids measured up top. And we're really just going to start picking through, making sure everything's in place and getting ready to rip this thing. So yeah. So right now I'm just going around and double checking all my connection points here. I want to make sure the doors and all the valves are closed the way I want them to be. This door can be a little funky. You have to kind of push it up and set it, but yeah, just making sure we have a good seal. Josh and Mag are going to be doing a couple of different things today. They're going to be playing support roles. The last time we recorded, last time we brewed, Josh was heavily shadowing the brew day with me, which is really a lot of fun. Today, because of our schedule, they have multiple other things to be doing, so yeah, that's just going to be what that is. I'm going to be knocking this out, and I'll be feathering them in along the way as allows. So what they're going to have going on, and so that's one of the interesting things. You know, a lot of times people think, well, in a brewery, if you're not brewing, you're not doing much stuff. It's like a down day, and it's not really. There's usually a lot of things going on at once. And so our to-do list today is I'm going to be brewing, they're going to be sanitizing the fermenter I'm going into, they're going to be harvesting yeast. We have our airborne, our amber lager, that's done with fermentation. The yeast is ready to be harvested off that, and we're going to use that for the Prost, the Dunkel that we're making today. And so we have that brink over here, we have this keg. This keg is built out clean and sanitized. They're gonna come in, dump sani on that, and then measure yeast into here, and then we'll be adding that to the fermenter when we run off. They're also going to be sanitizing a bright tank, purging it, and transferring another beer in there. So it's really going to be a full day for them as we're doing this stuff. So yeah, kind of a typical day where we're juggling a handful of things. So they'll also have to prep the cooler for the weekend, making sure we have enough beer down and everything like that. So yeah, want to get some coffee? Yeah, we're all set. I like brew days like this where everything is good to go. I have my branded coffee mug. I like to be friendly when I drink my coffee, so the bottom says hello. We build teams here, Dustin.
We're gonna see the inner workings.
Yeah, get it all. It's all. I mean, how can it not be gold? We did come in first thing and make coffee because that is a relative requirement. Maybe I just got my morning Barry White voice. It's a beautiful hand-picked Malaysian bean, interspersed with some other exotic beans. and then roasted with care.
Excellent.
You're like, I'm not recording any of this. I'm just pretending. So one of the fun things about this beer is you'll find out this morning is that this room's gonna smell great. This is one of those mashes that is just fantastic. Munich malt has this rich, toasty, maybe kind of like a little bit of bread crust, but it has like its own sweetness to it. It's really awesome. Makes a really killer beer, and this recipe is really simple, and a lot of these German beers are like that. Lagers are really meant to, because lager yeast doesn't contribute a tremendous amount of flavor and aroma. They really get out of the way. They're very clean. It just really features the malt, and so simple grain bill, good malt, and it's fun. I love it. All right, so we are ready to start mashing in. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking water from the hot liquor tank right here and pumping it up through here. We have a flow meter right here. It's going to allow me to track the volume of water that I'm using. And we're going to go up into the mash tun. So I'm going to get that water dropping. I keep an eye on my flow meter at first, just to make sure that it's reading correctly. You know, they can get sometimes, I've had them get a little wonky in the past, so it's just kind of one of those, you know, self-check paranoia things that you do. And so functionally what's happening right now is this unit right here is an over-under hot liquor tank on the bottom, mash tun on the top. The mash tun is where I'm going to be mixing the hot liquor tank water and the grain, or the grist, for this beer, and making, I always screw up what I'm supposed to be calling this mixture. We're making a mixture. I occasionally call it one time I was giving a tour and I called it a slurry, and my staff gave me crap for it, so. I'm turning on the rake now. Rake is just inside turning, helping to mix this grain and grist as it drops through. At the bottom of the mash tun right here, there's a false bottom, meaning just a screen that will help me keep grain above it and pull the wort off the bottom. Wort is really just the sugar water we're making through this whole process. Mashing is making malt sugar water. Malt sugar water is called wort. All the grain that is in this hopper up here has been milled to expose the starches in it. And in this process, when we rest it in a certain temperature range, 145 to 160 plus or minus, the enzymes in the malt are going to convert that starch to sugar. So that's really what we're doing. We're making malt sugar water, or what's known as wort, right now. And I'm gonna have 224 gallons of water coming in behind this. I'm going to open up this door, and I'm going to start dropping grain into the mash tun. During this process, I'm going to be using some brewing salts. In this case, a little bit of gypsum and a little bit of calcium chloride. There's a lot of beers that we do that we really heavily manipulate as far as the water goes. This is not one of them. We get enough calcium for yeast health. And then we build that water profile back up with a little bit of sulfate and a little bit of chloride. Sulfate helps to make the beer, you can kind of argue, a little bit more crisp. I think more functionally, the best way to look at sulfate in beer is to say that if you're looking through a pair of binoculars and it's fuzzy, and then you use the little ring to make it come into focus, I think sulfate helps to put the bitterness into focus a little bit. It doesn't make a beer more bitter, but it just makes it more defined, the bitterness. We also have some chloride in here, a good mix of both. Chloride helps to pull up and lift up some of the malt character in the beer, make it a little softer, a little bit rounder. Dude, it smells so good. This is one of my favorites. Darker beers, for some reason, for me, just They smell the best in the mash tun, man. That part will never get old for me. So what I'm really watching right now is I'm watching this grain fall down that corrugated tube. I'm gonna go with corrugated, all right? So grain is coming down here, falling through this grist hydrator, and there's hot liquor tank water coming in here, and it mixes. It hydrates the grain right here, the grist right here, and then drops it into the tank. Dude, it smells amazing, doesn't it? Can you smell it yet? Yeah, dude. So good. Well, take my word for it. It smells good. Once again, and I probably say this stuff all the time, but the purpose of me adding salt and acid to the mash, the reason I'm adding acid, I'm using 75% food grade phosphoric acid. I'm adding that in order to hit the appropriate pH range in this beer. Most of my beers, the mash pH is plus or minus 5.3, 5.35. And then I'm adding enough brewing salts, and typically really all I use is ever gypsum and calcium chloride. I add those things for an appropriate amount of calcium. And then I kind of I've heard it described before by the great John Palmer, that messing with your water is kind of like the salt and pepper in a dish. It's not gonna make a bad beer good, but it can help to make a good beer great kind of thing. It's easy to go too far with your water additions and really screw up a good beer. Fortunately, I have good buddies in the industry that are smarter than me when it comes to things like this, and they help me through that process. Right now I use a program called Brew and Water that I've been coached up on how to use. This is one of those areas I think sometimes brewers feel a little embarrassed when they can't answer every question, when they don't have every single element of this thing mastered. And I think it really comes down to, and it's kind of our overall philosophy here in the brewery, that we're always aiming for the bullseye and we're never hitting it. The idea being that there's so much to know about what we're doing. The main point is to try to be safe, be diligent, and keep trying to learn and keep pushing yourself, right? And again, leveraging those relationships that you have. I've been fortunate enough to be doing this for, I think, over a decade now. There's nothing like your network of quality people. I've got a core of people that I bounce things off of, they bounce things off me. All right, I'm gonna check the volume of water that's come in so far. We're looking good, and really this part of the game is, and this is one of the reasons why I like to be prepared for a brew day. When I walked in this morning, everything was ready to go. That's really the way I prefer to have things be. You can come in, make coffee, you can be careful, you can be diligent. If there's 5 other things I need to be doing right now, I'm asking to get hurt or to screw something up or to hurt somebody else. This is one of the nice kind of laid back parts of the whole thing. Really all I'm doing is monitoring this mash. What I don't want to have happen is I don't want to be dropping grain in so fast that I'm stacking up kind of this big wreath, because I have this rake turning in here, and it'll just kind of create this wreath of dry grain on top of the mash bed. That's not what I want to see. I also don't want to see it just look like a whole bunch of water on top either. I like to see a really homogeneous mixture of water and grain at this point. It's a little on the thick side, but it means that I'm gonna have a little bit more water to chase in at the end. I don't like to be dropping grain down and run out of the amount of and tap out on the amount of water I'm supposed to be using for this per all these measurements, and then just be dropping dry grain in here. It wants to clump up in here. That drives me crazy. So I always run a little bit thicker, meaning I want to keep a little bit more water behind to chase everything else down. I'm just feeling how much grain I have left. One of the things that I've done that I've really enjoyed, and it's something that I want to be including on this channel, is I've made essentially just hard copy templates, or well, electronic copy templates of all these beers. And I can tell you, whenever I'm looking at a brew log, I always get a little paranoid that the numbers are correct. So right now, I'm just zooming in and comparing, and it makes me feel better about things. Our numbers are correct. So yeah, this beer uses dehusked roasted malt. And in this case, it's a product from Wyoming called Carafa Special 2. I love all that whole Carafa Special line of theirs. It's a roasted malt that does not have the husk on it. And as a result, you're going to get the color from that malt. Can you jump down? Dustin, I need to adjust something real quick. Can you jump down to the bottom floor? I need to adjust something. So right now I'm getting close on my volume of water that I want to be putting in here. So I'm just slowing it down and letting the grain catch up a little bit because I'm real close on the grain. But again, I don't want to outstrip my grain and not have any water to drop down behind it. All right, we look good. I'm gonna hose down the inside of this mash tun real quick. The grain kind of splashes all over the place, and I like to rinse it down quickly. You know, somebody might be able to point out, hey, this is just city water going in. It is. All the water that we use in here is charcoal filtered, which helps to remove a lot of different things, but explicitly chloramines and chlorine, which is a real negative for a beer, can create some off flavors. So, along with the other good things that charcoal filtration does, removing other things as well. But this is a very small amount of city water that goes in here, so I'm not really sweating it, even though it hasn't been charcoal filtered. All right, that looks good. One of the things I like to do is I like to run the rakes in reverse when I'm done. So I do, trying to make sure I have a good mix. And then I'm gonna run them back forward again. The layout of the engineering of this rake is supposed to set the grain bed a certain way. So I like to run it back the appropriate way forward when I'm done. This can all just be things that I do to make myself more comfortable, but I'm good with that. Smells so good. What up, Josh? All right, so I screwed up. How I screwed up was I didn't get all my salt and acid in during the mash. I'm not gonna lose my mind over that. I added it now. And I'm gonna stir the mash just a little bit longer. And then that will get appropriately mixed during recirc, which we're starting shortly. But earlier in my career, I would have been very concerned right now, but at this point, I'm not as concerned. I have Josh's disappointment, which is really all I need. All right, so right now we are mashed in. We do not do really long mash rests here. When I was brewing at home, we would rest for an hour. I would rest for an hour, which is pretty typical for that. I don't rest that long anymore. I basically get mashed in, a couple of side things that I need to do, and then I come back and I start my recirculation. Reason being is that it seems as if, from my understanding, that modern malt is efficient enough to where very, very quickly that starch conversion to sugar it's just happening. So anyways, that's been my experience as well. So we're gonna start recirculating that. What that means is I'm gonna start pulling this really cloudy, kind of grain chunky wort down through the bottom of the false bottom and recirculating it back up to the top of the mash bed. The idea here is that I'm gonna run that process until I'm grain free. The idea is so I can ultimately louder, clear wort to the kettle, okay? So it's gonna drop through this sight glass right here. Starts off looking brown, a little bit orange, then switches to brown. Tons of grain in it, obviously, right now. This is gonna start filling our grant. I do like this to be a gentle process. You don't wanna be super aggressive with it. So I really do baby it. But I will slam it open a little bit, and then slow it back down some, just see if I can pull a little extra grain and kind of clear it a little bit. This kind of grainy wort right now is slowly filling our dear friend Ulysses, our grant. The purpose of a grant is to have a vessel that is full of wort that I can pump off of and return back to the top of the grain bed, to the top of the mash bed. The reason I don't want my pump hooked up directly to the bottom of the mash tun is if I mistakenly run that pump too hard, I can compress the grain bed, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to cause too much suction there. So this way, the pump is attached to a secondary vessel that's holding wort. If I run this dry, that's one thing, that's fine. I'm not actually creating additional pressure on the mash bed. This is the only thing that governs how much pressure I'm applying to the bottom of that grain bed. So it's kind of a little protective step. You can see it is full of grain right now. To recirc and get clear, we run that for 25 minutes. I'll take a saccharification test. I'll just take a sample and make sure that we generated the expected amount of sugar. We'll use our refractometer in order to do that. All right, so my grant is full. And so I'm going to turn my pump on. I usually run it faster for a second just to make sure that I'm blowing through a full column of liquid. And then it's kind of an eyeball game because it's a dial-driven pump. I can't be super exact with it. I just kind of fine point adjustment. And what we're looking to form is I can show you a line of stainless steel that goes into the mash tun and then lays right up against the side of it. And I want to have a palabra of wort running down the side of the mash tun. This is when you find out there's words that you don't pronounce well. It's running a little hard right now, so you kind of have to palabra? That's the word, right? Get out of here. This is why when people say toxic work environment, this is what they're talking about. Sometimes you feel as if you just give and give and give, and other people just take. I'm not saying that's Josh, but I'm also not saying that's Josh. Not. This is being fussy. Okay, cool. There's really no in-between today. I would like to have it a hair softer. We'll run like that. I feel good about that. I'm gonna set a timer for 25 minutes. And then we'll come back to this a couple of times. Right now it looks real brown. All that grain particulate is kind of up in it. Really, this is me just monitoring this now. If my liquid level, if my wort level in the grant starts dropping, it means I'm A, pumping too fast, B, I'm not giving enough supply to the grant, something like that. So anyway, that's the deal. I got my timer going. I'm gonna write it down, and then we'll measure up some other stuff. The Vorlauf, so German, 7:10 to 7:35. All right, I'm steaming up my glasses, man. It's getting hot in here, Josh. All right, what else? I'm gonna drink some coffee. So go ahead and check out that sight glass and Grant. You can see how dark it's gotten. Dunkel, that looks like a stout right now. That looks black. I'll get a flashlight under that sight glass for you though. I like to be able to check that, make sure I don't have a bunch of grain going through there, especially when a beer is that dark. It's difficult to see without throwing a light under it. You can see it kind of has like these ruby highlights now. It's probably not black, it's probably a really dark brown. You can see a little bit of particulate coming through, but by and large it looks really good. You might be thinking to yourself, if you're familiar with the style of Munich Dunkel, that the beer shouldn't be this dark. But you have to keep in mind, I still have a lot of water to be adding to this. I like to use the analogy of kind of like coffee making, and if you broke the amount of water that you use to brew a pot of coffee in two and ran half through at once and separated that really dark, rich coffee, and then ran the second half of the water through and took that weak, lighter coffee, that's essentially what's kind of happening here in some ways, as far as a intensity type standpoint and color type standpoint. This is going to be the darkest portion of the wort, this first wort. But as we start sparging it and rinsing that grain bed, it's going to get lighter and lighter and lighter. This beer is going to be kind of just on the other side of like amber getting into brown. That's the deal. Marge, once you're done with that, can you do my acid and salts for this? And we're looking at right here, that portion.
Yeah.
Sweet, thank you. We've taken our wort sample, our gravity sample on this, and we're at 19 bricks, which is what I expect from this point in the process. I'm going to pull a small wort sample to cool down and take the pH of. Smells so good, making the beer. We're working on different songs. We have a song called Coworkers. It's really kind of for them it's really like it's a battle cry, inspirational music that touches their soul, their words, not mine. It's not something that I'm gonna sing right now. I like it to be organic and for it to basically just be what I like to call a joyful noise. Look at you.
Are you talking about the coworker? Have you added more verses to the coworker song?
I like the look on Maggie's.
The subtle head shake. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the subtle head shake. For my taste, it wasn't subtle enough. Yeah. All right, so we're circling. Ooh, 11 seconds. So that wort sample that we just pulled off the mash tun, I'm going to be cooling down to take a pH sample on. We've already taken our gravity sample and measured that with the refractometer. My timer is going off for the recirc. Again, we just checked it a minute ago, but it really looks great. Pulled a lot of color. You can see kind of those amber garnet highlights in it, primarily grain-free. We're looking pretty happy. So I'm going to begin the process, and this point in the process is really all gravity fed, and this is the way the system is built. The mash tun is up higher than the kettle, and so I don't need to be using a pump to be doing this. You can just come right through. I'm just going to stop the pump from pushing it back up to the top of the grain bed, and then I'm going to be opening a valve down here on the side of the kettle, which just by gravity will allow flow of the wort heading into the kettle. With a brew house like this, you're going to find that a lot of things are done by feel and by visuals. It's just the way it is. Sometimes people say when their favorite brewery grows and they get, more fancy equipment and everything like that, sometimes they complain that the beer isn't what it used to be. My feeling is the beer's becoming what they actually want it to be. Big places that have more technology built into their brew house, they can dial it in. Their processes are super repeatable. We do everything we can, and I feel as if we do a good job with that, but it's nothing like the automated systems that some people are running out there, and it's just different. There's some people that really enjoy that type of brewing, and I can see the high points of it, being able to really dial things in, so much more control over the process. There's something very satisfying about that. I get it, and I would enjoy that portion of it. But for me, I enjoy the hands-on portion of this too. So, I don't know. There's something about climbing around this thing and opening up valves. That's fun. So this is the beginning of the lauter, okay? We're starting to move, this is the beginning of the lauter. We're starting to move clear wort, so grain-free wort, out of the mash tun through the false bottom or that screen on the bottom that's keeping all the grain out. So we're running nice clean wort, clear wort now into the kettle. And that is all part of the lauter. After I get a couple of barrels into the kettle, I will begin to sparge, which is where I'll begin to kind of shower hot liquor tank water on top of the grain bed to continue rinsing out more sugars into the kettle. It's that idea of adding the second portion of your coffee water, right? When we kind of used that analogy before. So the original wort that we're running off right now is dark. It's the sweetest stuff that we're going to make in the whole process. It's the richest. And the second runnings are progressively weaker in flavor, it'll be less dense, so there'll be less sugar in solution. But when you add it all together, it kind of makes that good pot of coffee. It makes what you're shooting for. There's a couple of things that I'm tracking when we're sparging and lautering. Number one is the rate at which it's happening. I want this whole process of beginning to fill the kettle to last about 90 minutes. If I go slower than that, you can make the argument that I'm wasting time, I'm being inefficient. If I go faster than that, if I rush this process, I could be leaving sugar behind in the mash tun, and I don't want to do that. So 90 minutes is kind of the standard for getting good bang for your buck, and as far as the amount of sugar you're getting and efficiency in your process. You saw me set a timer. How I do that is I set a 15-minute timer, and I know for my system, I'm going to be running 18 barrels into this. I'm basically going to be running 1 barrel every 5 minutes into this kettle. So I just keep track of that. I keep track of it on my brew log as well. I would rather go a little slower at first, and then I can speed up a little bit as we go, as that grain bed kind of sets and figures out how it wants to be flowing. The whole idea of lautering and of sparging and of running liquid through the mash bed is I want it going through the entire mash bed. I want to be rinsing it thoroughly. One of the big keys in that part is me making sure that the pH of that water that I'm sparging with is appropriate. So you're going to see me hitting up the surface of the mash with a diluted acid solution, again 75% food grade phosphoric. It makes a big difference, especially in lagers. I've noticed that. There was a time where I wasn't treating my sparge water, dropping the pH of my sparge water, and you pull the graininess out of it, and like a non-pleasant graininess in the back end. And it's a fine point on these beers, but these beers are all about fine points. So anyway, I'm going to be dropping the pH of that. If the pH is high during the sparge, you're going to be pulling tannins out, so those harsh, grainy flavors, and that's what I'm trying to avoid. So that's really what I'm doing right now. I'm going to be tracking this and doing other little odds and ends as we go. So I think that's it. I'm going to have Josh harvest yeast. We are going to dry hop the Blondbach today too. And we'll fit that in. If you actually want to part that out, we can make sure that we have a new bin of iodine built. Get all our parts soaking in there. And then we can build that out. Remember, I like to, when we build that out, grab a clean bucket, set it up in there just so it's up out of it, and ISO the tar out of everything, and then just completely build it, and then it's easy to bring up whole and go from there. And then I don't think there's much to do in the cooler, but just some odds and ends there too. And I believe Farmer left an empty bin back there.
Yes.
I think I saw that on the way in. So, killer. Cool. Was it a good shift last night?
It was not super busy at all, really. We got like kind of a bump and then
Sure.
just
Yeah.
a
The
lot
rain
of
was crazy.
rides. Huh?
The rain was crazy.
Yeah.
Joseph and I were out going around our property, and the water is everywhere.
Yeah.
Just like it was like floating on top of the grass.
Yeah.
It was raining. Just real quick, do I have salt and acid ready?
Yeah, I have to dilute that acid.
Awesome.
real quick, and then
Awesome.
the salts are already ready.
And Josh, where are you at, brother man? What's that? Nice. Nice. And then you're going to be good. We're going to drop a few gallons of yeast off the bottom of this. This harvest is not going to be as robust as consecutive ones. We're only going to harvest this once. But once we get 2 generations under it, we'll cut 2 pitches off the next time. We'll probably run Cartucho off of it and whatever else we need. But you're all set with that stuff. So. What's that? What's my math on that? We're gonna have 16.5 barrels, and I think we're gonna want to pull like 4.4 pounds off per barrel. So what is that? Are we talking like 230, 60? Yeah, 60, 70 pounds. Yeah. We'll just keep an eye on it. We'll go slow with it. We'll take some footage of him harvesting yeast today too. This amber lager that we're harvesting off of, it's the first. It was a brand new pitch, and so I like to give it a couple of uses before I start like harvesting off of it multiple times. So today what we'll do is we'll harvest off of it, and then I'm going to start dumping the rest of the yeast off it over the next couple days, because we want to leave that yeast in there for too long. It doesn't want to be on it. I mean, whether people want to hear it or not, alcohol is a waste product for yeast, right? And so just to leave them in a kind of a toxic environment. So we're going to harvest the yeast that we want, and then we'll dump all the rest that continues to settle down the bottom of the tank as we go into the lagering period for that beer. So, yeah. What's good, Mag? 10 minutes in, we're about at 2 barrels. It's like we've done it before.
Yeah.
All right. What else? It's good. This could be a good day. We're busy. We have stuff we need to do. It's going to keep moving. If you need to make lists, and then it's going to flow real smooth. All right, I'm getting one more cup of coffee. All right, so we're going through our first of 6 15-minute cycles. That's going to give us our 90-minute runoff. Right now we have 2.6 barrels in the kettle. We're usually shooting for close to 3, so we're in the range. We're a little on the slow side, which to be honest is where I like to be. I'd rather run this portion a little bit slower. And then as the grain bed gets set and we're sparging, we can go a little bit faster. So I can catch up with this. That's really not a big deal. So I just mark that on my brew sheet, reset my timer, another 15 minutes is going. And then I'm going to give this a slight bump to increase my runoff speed. Everything's still looking happy over here. And I'm going to get on my sparge now. Just now, the top of the grain bed is just starting to be exposed. I add my salt and acid. I add my salts. And then I'm going to start sparging on top of that. Checking all my valves. I'm going to reset my flow meter because I have a set amount of water that's going in here. There it is, baby. Sweet. The reason I'm not just taking the full volume of acid and just pouring it in right now is that, okay, good. I couldn't see my mic. The reason I'm not just taking the full measurement of acid here and just pouring it in or occasionally pouring it in, the idea is that I want all the water that's coming in here to have its pH reduced, okay? Not just a small channel of an area that I'm pouring it through. This makes me more comfortable. I like being able to disperse that acid periodically throughout the whole process. And I can tell you that I've had brewer friends taste these beers blind and know which beers I've adjusted the sparge pH and those that I haven't. So it makes a legitimate difference. So I kind of feel like I feel a little silly showing people this because it looks ridiculous and it does tie me to the process here, but there's really no way for me to be functionally adjusting the pH of my hot liquor tank. There's just not the ports for it and stuff like that. So this is what I do. And it works. So, you know. It might look silly, but it gets the job done. So these little down in between times, right now, I'm monitoring this whole process. And then from a management standpoint, I'm going through my mental checklist of what has to happen. The great thing about having an awesome team, which it's probably gonna sound cliche. I honestly don't know. I was telling my wife the other day, I don't know. When I look back at my career, I honestly believe that what I have going on right here with these two is probably as good as I'm going to have it as somebody operating a brewery. So that's the great thing is I can go through my mental checklist, I can be working with them, and it's just great. So it's awesome. I love being able to really focus on what I'm doing, just knowing that they're knocking out everything the way they're trained to. So, but at the same time, we spend a lot of time on SOPs, on developing them, revisiting them, editing them, making sure that we're keeping up with those practices. It's the only way, because as we grow, I need them to be able to train as well, right? So, I don't know, that's the exciting thing. We have a big summer coming up. We're gonna try to, for us, you know, we're not a massive production brewery, but we're looking to, you know, really increase. You're dripping a little bit, Mag. Is that cracked? Or did it slosh over the side? Oh, that's iodine. Oh, I thought that was caustic for a second, and you just scooped it out. So that's what. Never mind. You're good. I mean, for us, this is year 2 for us, and so we're looking to, you know, for us really increase distribution. We're really dialing in on our inventory processes. We have a little bit of data now to be working with. We're working on, you know, cost cutting, hitting those things, and just really trying to become more efficient. So, you know, the exciting thing is my goal is to have the entire staff trained on essentially everything by beginning of Q2, maybe mid Q2, right when things really start booming for us. So, yeah, they're great. I'm super proud of them. And it's just a good feeling on top of it, knowing that you have people that really care about what they're doing and are appreciative. Enough gushing about those losers. One of the things I do when I do this, my mash water today was my strike water. The water that I used for the initial mash-in was 170 degrees. It gave me a mash rest of 153. That helps to create a little bit fuller bodied beer. This is a small beer, so I feel like it needs a little bit of a higher mash temperature. It leaves a little more non-fermentable sugar in the beer, which helps lift up the body of the beer. And then I did heat up the sparge water. I like to kick that up into the, you know, mid 170s. I'm still a little bit slow. I'm not too worried about it. I'm bumping open my inlet to the kettle, and then I'm also feathering this valve open a little bit more because that's my supply to the whole thing. So I'm just speeding up my runoff a little bit. To me, again, this is one of those things that's just enjoyable. Typically, what would be happening now if we weren't recording, they would be playing music, Josh and Maggie would be rapping, or I would be doing those things and they would be tolerating me. The word smells great. Got a little over 3 barrels in the kettle. All right. We're just shy of 6 barrels, which is fine. But I am bumping it up a little bit. We're gonna get some hops. We're gonna be using 2 hops in this. Come follow me. Yeah, if you could do that, please, I'd appreciate it. Doesn't it smell great? Let's go get hops, Dustin. This is one of our inventory things that we do, one of our tracking things. Maggie and Liz made this back in the day. It's the plus side of having people on your team that have strengths that you don't. I would never be able to do this. Maggie maintains it, and it's awesome. We need hops for today. We're gonna be using Warrior. For a bittering addition, we're going to boil those hops for 60 minutes. And we're going to be using Herzbrucker for a late addition on this. So we have Warrior hops. They're a high alpha acid hop that it's appropriate for bittering uses. And then we have Herzbrucker, which is a German varietal. It's a noble hop. Noble hops there's a range of traditional continental hops that are relatively subtle. People use terms like floral, earthy, spicy. I'm not a big fan of calling those hops spicy, but not as in heat spice, but maybe a little bit of black pepper, something like that. This beer doesn't require a lot of bitterness. I think with working with a recipe like this where you kind of want to emphasize, this beer's small for us, it's like 4.6%, I think. There's not a ton to it. It's not like a big robust beer, but I think if you get the balance right, it can kind of drink like a little bit fuller beer without losing the ability to drink multiple pints of it. That's really the idea. All these German lagers are they're all about balance, man. And this is one of my favorite parts of what we do back here. So with this, we're looking for a small bittering charge up front, and then a small addition of the Herzbrucker, that noble hop, that traditional German hop, a 2-pound addition at 30 minutes. Just maybe a little subtlety in the beer. Maybe a slightest edge of hop flavor, something like that. Not really, but I mean, not hop flavor the way we think about like with IPA and everything like that, where we're just talking about trying to feather in a little bit of nuance. I feel like there's a sound from Mega Man 2. I feel like one of his guns makes a similar noise to that. Yeah, this is good. I like getting started early. Look at the sun coming out over that and hitting the apartments next door. It's awesome. I bet the tower looks amazing out there. The shot tower and the other. How are you guys tracking? Good? Do we have kegs to jumper today? Just one? Okay. Cool. CLT's knocking down. We're gonna get to the point to where we need the CLT all the time again. Once the groundwater becomes 85 again, which blows my mind. When you walk in at 7 in the morning. Oh yeah, dude. It's it ain't pretty. It ain't pretty. Hey, can we just give a quick shout out to the most ridiculously high quality gloves we've ever had in the brewery?
The best gloves. They make us look cool.
Yeah, one, it makes you look like a tattoo artist.
First of all, the most important thing is that we look cool.
Yeah,
The only thing that
let's
matters.
face the facts. Let's face the facts.
With black gloves.
Yeah, and they're thick, dude.
They don't just, yeah, they don't get.
They don't tear? Hell no. I have a feeling this is a new purchase that is not going to continue to be made for long. We need to enjoy this while they last. I can just see him jumping. Mega Man. Isaac has a little Nintendo console that has a handful of games on it, but the controller doesn't work right. So like when we play Tecmo Bowl, like certain teams you can't run any pass plays. It just always runs the same run play. It's irritating. Have you learned how to lose to your children? No. I haven't either, dude. I'm not good at it. And I don't know, like, I don't know. The question is it good for them or do I need the win? That's that's what's concerning for me.
They always know if they come play me, they're gonna get naked.
Oh, dude, how are we doing here? 9, we should be right there. Nice. How do you feel your list is today? Is it too much? It'll just be steady?
I mean, yeah, it has a nice progression to it.
Steady knocking, yeah.
It makes sense for me, like.
Because really, as soon as you kill there, you can get pump over there.
Yeah, and then hook up here.
Yep.
She can start running Sammy on that tank for transfer.
And then we'll need to bring it back over for CLT at the end.
Yeah.
At the end of the brew day. So we'll be moving that pump's gonna be hustling today.
Yeah.
Pump's gonna be pumping.
Pump's gonna be pumping, doing pump things.
Should I just throw this away?
Dag, dude, no. We can get a replacement for that.
Oh, okay.
Broken sight glass. Put it up with I have a couple other jank pieces over there that we need to swap out. Just get that completely out of rotation.
One of my New Year's resolutions was to stop throwing pieces into buckets of sanitizer and PVC.
It's a good one.
My New Year's resolutions were to try to be more on time, which is not going well, and to stop throwing metal pieces into buckets of water.
I think they're both good. Both good goals.
In February, so I still have
Listen.
10 months
Yeah.
to work on it.
Yes. Yes. Are we at 9 barrels, Josh? Are we at 9 barrels? 9.5? All right, so we have 9.5 barrels in the kettle right now. That means I have both my steam jackets covered, which means that's where I'm comfortable. All 3 steam jackets covered. We have 9.5 barrels in the kettle right now, so we're essentially halfway through our lauter, which is running wort into the kettle. We're just about to finish up our sparge. We've only got another 20 gallons, 30 gallons to go in, so about a barrel of water to go in there. And it is time to turn on the steam jackets for the kettle. The reason that I wait till there's 9.5 barrels in there is that is the point where all 3 jackets are covered in wort. I don't like to run those dry. I'm assuming it's not good. And yeah, the crazy thing is we've done a lot of different things, turn jackets on individually as it fills up. Dude, it still boils at the same rate. I don't understand physics. And so one of the things that I do as kind of my checklist things, you're listening, I can hear the steam now. I'm gonna keep an eye on the pressure on the boiler. You never know if something's gonna go sideways, if something's gonna quit working on you. You kind of just do visual maintenance on what's happening in your space. But we're looking good. You might be able to see at this point that we're considerably lighter in our sight glass here. And that's just going to continue to be the case as we go. Feeling good, dude. I love getting in early. It's the best feeling. I don't know why. It's good to be into your process before the light's up. Yeah, the light, the sun. It's nice, man. I don't know. And then they get in, they get popping on their stuff. The older I get, the more of an early riser I am. So it just feels like you're being super productive. Oh, perfect. That is all the water we need here. Sparge is done. I no longer have to worry about spraying acid on top of the mash bed or anything like that. And I'm just going to continue to lauter this out, to continue to run this wort into the kettle. Right now, we have 10.5 barrels in, and we're still tracking pretty tightly with where we want to be. Wort is looking great. Yeah, this feels nice. I like this. I'm going to close those doors up there. I think this is going to be one of these days that you feel occupied, you feel like just the right amount of busy. There's always something to be doing, and then time flies and you just smashed all the stuff that you needed to do, and it feels good.
How long does this take?
Huh?
How long does it take to get the rest of this up?
We have about another 45 minutes. I think. Yeah, because I should be up to 12 by 60 minutes. And we're at 11, right? We're getting up to 11 right now, so yeah, we're looking good. And the majority of this lauter, or the majority of transferring this wort to the kettle, happens via gravity. It's really only the last handful of barrels that will nudge it up with the pump a little bit. And yeah, it's a well-designed system like that. It's fun. It's an old specific mechanical. It was originally plumbed in to be a little bit more German style, but we changed it around a little bit to be a single infusion. But it's really nice equipment. I love using it. I think that might be it for right now. We can probably cut and recharge our mics. Yeah. If you guys jump onto dry hop, you can get this hooked up, and then we set up, do dry hop, and then we can get ready to do set up rousing on it and everything. Blast it a few times through the day. Do we have mic for me? Yes. Okay. All right, so right now we're just banging through stuff. We have about 3 barrels left to lauter over to the kettle. We're going to be taking 18 barrels in there, maybe just a little bit shy, but it should be about 18 barrels. You can see how light, how copper colored now this runoff is. It's looking clear and beautiful. We love to see that. I did just turn the pump on because we're kind of getting to the point to where the liquid level is low enough in the mash tun and the liquid level is high enough in the kettle that we don't have gravity working in our favor anymore. So again, this is a little bit of a visual experience thing that I do with this, but I will turn this on, get a light underneath the sight glass, and you can see small pieces going by. It's just a visual that I know kind of what speed I need right there, and also some familiarity with the speed dial, but you're just ballparking it really. So we have about another 10 minutes till we're at kettle full. Maggie is running sanitizer on the bright tank that we are going to be transferring a beer into today. Do we need to open the bottom valve on the sight glass? Excellent. Josh is getting prepped up to harvest our yeast for today. They're both about to break and dry hop a beer over here. So we got a lot going on. But it's going well, it's going smooth. Oh, I need to pull a sample on that beer. I need some ISO. This is Huey, right?
Yes.
If we were going to try to make, here's the problem. Huey Lewis and the News. Brewy Lewis and the News.
No.
Huey Lewis and the Brews.
Yeah.
Huey Brewis and the News. Why does it work for all of them? My mom's friend loved Huey Lewis back in the 80s, man. I'm not joking. I remember going over their house. She loved Huey Lewis.
Huey Lewis and the Brews.
Huey Lewis and the Brews.
Brewy Lewis and the Hughes.
I'm trying to remember lyrics to a Huey Lewis song and say them seriously. But all I can think is you're going to have to face it, you're addicted to love, and I think that's Robert Palmer. Or is that the golfer?
I don't know.
Robert Palmer. Arnold Palmer is the golfer. What was a Huey Lewis song? I'm disappointed in me, per usual. It's my general balancing point is self-disappointment. What are the?
To be square.
Oh yes, I see. I could have went Hip to Be Square, but I don't know that one as well. What else?
So basically, it's all the Back to the Future sound.
Yeah, that's basically it. Doesn't he have a song about rock and roll in the name? Like, is that something?
Yeah, that's Back to the Future.
That's Back to the Future. Man, what is happening? What is happening to me? A little food grade kettle defoamer. Helps to prevent a boil over. We'll talk about it probably a million times, but boiling the kettle over is one of the more dangerous things that can happen in a brew space. Getting burnt with hot liquid is one thing, but getting burnt with a viscous liquid that holds heat rather than dissipates heat is a whole other. So we don't want to do it. What?
Huey, your friend. Huey Brewis and the Lose.
Huey Brewis and the Lose. I like that. I thought you said Huey Brewis and the Ludes.
Ludes.
And I don't think like Quaaludes. Like I'm pretty sure like people don't use the term lude. L-U-D-E-S, I think.
I'm on the Ludes.
I'm on Ludes, bruh.
Brewy Hewis and the Ludes.
It's starting to sound like you're not speaking English. Dude, this looks great. Makes me happy. We only have one more barrel to go in the kettle, baby. Banging it. Ooh, do you have a bucket?
Yeah, it's over there.
Nice. ISO that mug, girl. ISO. I'm gonna rinse this. Do you want me to take something from you?
Yes, please.
You got it. I want this cup put into PVC. I had it in the kettle. What? Just an empty one. No PVC is made right now.
Correct.
Cool. And then ISO it up again real good. I'll take your clamp if you want me to. Hey, so Dustin, what you're looking at is our dry hopping vessel. It's this cool little guy that fits right on a 4-inch valve. You can pressurize it, sanitize it, pressurize it, fill it with hops, and then so it's completely purged. You're not opening up your dry hop. You're not opening up your tank to the atmosphere. Completely purge it with CO2, open the valve, and drop things down. And I'll show you how it's actually rigged out. I'll bring something over. One of the more notorious fails, quote unquote fails, and really actually dangerous thing that happens in this industry is when people dry hop a tank, they will open it up, pour hops in, and it will create nucleation points for the CO2. It'll start to gush. the beer will start to generate foam and will actually shoot out of that port. You can find plenty of videos of that online. It's funny to see, it's dangerous, stuff like that. So that dry hopper actually fits on a valve like this. A valve like this is on top of that tank. So we clamp it to here, and then only when we want to, we open the tank. Once that dry hop vessel is full, sealed, purged, then we drop those hops in. It's just nice. It prevents a major safety hazard, and it actually is quite good for the beer in the way that you're not introducing oxygen at this stage in the game, which is a no-no. All right, so we are at kettle full. Our boil is rolling pretty vigorously. We just hit our boil temperature here. So I'm going to trim back my boiler a little bit because I know my system, and generally that's what I have to do. Boil is just started. We do a 90-minute boil on pretty much everything we do. I find we get better break, protein break, meaning we can, it helps create a clearer wort downstream. So we boil for 90 minutes. The longer we boil, the more water that evaporates out, the more sugar dense our wort is as well. There's a handful of things going on here that are happening at once. So we're going to boil for a half hour, and then we're going to put in our 60-minute hop edition. It's a 1-pound Warrior edition, which is going to be driving, I think probably about, I'm going to have to look up the numbers, maybe about 12, 13 IBU. And then the Herzbrucker edition that I have at 30 minutes is going to bring me up to a total of about 19 IBU total for the beer. So things are going real smoothly. Feel good about it. All right, so we're marking boil as starting at 9:20. This means that at 10:50 we will be doing flame out. That means that my 60-minute edition happens at 9:50. My 30-minute edition happens at 10:20. I just like to fill out my brew log with all the scheduled things that are going in. We're looking good. I'm going to set a timer. I set an individual timer for whatever my next thing is. And the next thing I need to do is at 9:50. All right. Let's get it. This opening stage of the boil is the most volatile portion of the boil. And so I tend to keep an eye on it. Again, the last thing we want is a boil over. I'm going to start draining the rest of the liquid out of my mash tun. There's not a bunch in there. We try to, that's on purpose. But we get that drained out, and we keep an eye on things. I'm going to get some hops measured up. All right, so we are going to measure up some of our hops. We have our bittering edition coming up, our 60-minute edition. You know, it's funny, in today's craft beer world, we throw a lot of hops around when we throw hops around. And so it's kind of fun for me, especially this has been one of the things that's kind of evolved for us naturally here at Cartridge since we opened about a year and a half ago, is we sell a lot of lager, and it's fun to make for me. So yeah, but these beers are the complete opposite. You know, these hops are subtle. They're not meant to be blasting and be at center stage. They're there in the background, propping things up, helping to keep things drinkable and balanced. So yeah, so really this is just a little 1 pound. A little 1 pound edition of Magnum. Magnum is a nice higher alpha acid hop that's good for bittering. People use the terminology and say it's a clean bittering hop, and by that meaning really all it does contribute is just a nice clean straight line bitterness. There's not a lot of extra flavor coming along with it or any harshness. We're going to have that edition coming up here in about another 5 minutes. The second edition is going to be really just 2 pounds of Herzbrucker, a lower alpha acid hop, noble, very traditional. To be honest, during the last year and a half of me really diving into these traditional German beers, I've just been buying different noble hops and running them through all of the lagers that I make. We make a beer called Up the Hill, which is our Helles, which is a really good seller for us. Been fortunate enough to win some awards for that beer. We make an amber lager. We make Prost, which is kind of rotating. It's not really the brown ale version of it's not just like a brown ale made with lager yeast. It's not that. But it's trending a little bit more in that direction. Brown ale is typically more chocolate and caramel. This is no caramel with a little bit of roast and some toastiness, right? That's what we have going on with this right now. So I'm just in a Herzbrecher cycle, running that hop through all these beers. Again, going back to the things that we do well and we don't do well. I have some brewer friends that can sit down, do a hop rub, and just pull all the descriptors out and know exactly how it's going to work in a beer. I need experience with it in order to make that happen. So yeah, that's really what's going on hopping wise with this. It's a light hand with everything with a beer like this. Do you want this arm open, Mag, for purge? Okay. And do we have it at 5? Yeah. You can start your 90-minute. Yeah, ma'am. Things are coming together. Where are you guys at? You're setting up that loop, right? All right, so when you have that loop set up, you and I will grain out, okay? Okay. All right, so we are 30 minutes into our boil here. It's my 1 pound of Magnum that's going in to be boiled for 60 minutes. The kettle's ripping pretty hard right now. It's kind of a fine line between, we want a good vigorous boil and get some good boil off, and also making sure that everything stays in the kettle. So what I like to do is I'll be real gingerly with adding my hops. Again, this is one of those times where when you're adding hops to a rolling boil like this, that it can kick back. What's up, Brandon? So I do it slowly, and you can tease me or whatever that I add my hops so slowly, but it makes me feel good. These hops are going to be boiled for 60 minutes. In another 30 minutes, we will be adding our small addition of some beautiful little traditional Herzbrecher hops from Germany. I'm going to babysit this kettle for a second to make sure it eats these hops, turns over, and the boil calms down again. And then next up, as this is going on, we're gonna grain out the mash tuns. So just as you kind of get a feel for the day, we've been doing all of our things. Josh and Maggie just wrapped up dry hopping a beer. Maggie just is finishing up sanitizing a bright tank that she's now purging of atmosphere with CO2. So we have a CO2 rich environment to transfer our fruited IPA Huey into. And so Josh over here is harvesting out some yeast that we're going to be brewing with today. He's taking yeast off of our airborne amber lager, and he's harvesting 4.4 pounds per barrel of lager yeast that's going to be going into this Dunkel today. And then while all that's happening, as that bright tank is purging, Maggie and I are going to grain out this mash tun. Good. All right, so Josh is harvesting yeast right now. What our rig is when we were sanitizing the fermenter that we're going into today, we built out this rig off the bottom line with a sight glass and a valve, and then a block over here. And so we had this sanitized line that we can attach to the tank that we want to harvest yeast off of. What Josh has been doing is, this is a brink, this is just a yeast keg. This yeast keg would be sealed, and we'll push yeast out down this line and out here. We will drop some of the initial yeast that comes off of a tank. It's typically dead yeast and yeast that stops working first, or like the most flocculent yeast. That's not what we want to be harvesting here. We want to be harvesting from the middle of the cone, so the cone of yeast. What we want to be doing is here, we have this cone of yeast in the bottom of the fermenter. We want to drop that bottom portion off, and we want to harvest the good stuff in the middle. So that's what we're doing right now. We're doing that by weight. Josh is harvesting about 4.4 pounds per barrel. We're going to be putting 16.5 barrels of wort for this Dunkel that we're making today into the fermenter. And so that's what he's doing in here, and he's weighing it. So that's how we handle yeast. At some point, though, I do think it's a little funny to like be recording stuff and seeing like partial glasses of beer laying around. I do want to be clear about something. Tasting is part of what we do, but it's actually tasting. I can't tell you how bad of an idea it is for some brewers that like to just flat out drink pints while they work, and they're out there and they post it online. The stupidity, please, on so many levels. If you want to have an instant ticket for anybody firing you on the spot, please post pictures of yourself drinking at work while you're working with fire, pressure, ladder, hoses, wet floors. There's hoses all over the floor. Trip and fall is the #1 injury in a brewery. And then you have, quite frankly, that are literally drinking pints at work. And actually, Andy, never say that I say they're it might be a sad situation. But honestly, have some respect for yourself, okay? Or the people that you're working with. I was looking for some information the other day on a Facebook group for our canner. And some guy posted his crispy boy that he was drinking. He said, like, during shift. That's what he said in the post. I hate that. It's the dumbest thing. I don't understand what. Man, that fires me up. Probably doesn't need to, but it does. And then you want to be taken seriously as a professional, right? You know what I mean? There's enough stigma about this industry, about being an alcoholic because you make beer for a living. Honestly, people just expect you to be drunk. And I'm telling you, you go to an event and people want you to be pounding beers, constantly feeding you beer. And that's nice, and they're trying to be hospitable and everything. Like, don't get me wrong. But like this whole thing where dudes they're posting pints while they're, dude, unreal. Imagine another. If you want our industry to look like losers, keep doing that. If you want to complain about brewer pay, keep doing that. If you want to not be treated like a professional, keep doing that. Anyways, I'm not even playing. Dude, that fires me up so much. And the kicker is going to be when something goes sideways, it's probably going to be somebody else that gets hurt because people are stupid. It's probably not going to be the person that's just stupid themselves. I think there's few games more Midwestern than Euchre. I think Euchre is.
I don't even know how to play.
He's not from the Midwest, homie.
I know Pinochle. I don't know Euchre.
My in-laws play Pinochle. I need to learn it. It would be a good gesture on my part. Josh, how's that kettle look? It doesn't look spooky, but it's rolling. My man! All right, so we are at I am recording, okay. It is time for our 30-minute hop edition on Prost, our Munich Dunkel here at Cartridge Brewing in the beautiful historic Peters Cartridge Factory complex. Renovation, historical product. It's a 2-pound Herzbrucker. Nice subtle little noble hop addition here in the middle of the kettle. Maybe being able to help lift up a little bit of noble hop character, a little floral, a little earthy. Again, the idea is a lot of times when we think of hops, we think about these robust American hops that we're slinging around that are all tropical, citrusy, more old school, maybe piney, little dank, stuff like that. This is not what we're doing with these classic German-style beers. And remember, this is the brew day, which is kind of a big experiment with this beer. We've made this beer a lot. I love it. Honestly, it's one of my beers I'm proudest of that we have on tap. As always, we want to get an ultra clean lager fermentation. We use Imperial Yeast Company, Imperial Yeast. They're awesome, great customer service, both on the sales side with Nina, give Nina a call, or on the lab side. I can't remember some of the lab folks' name, but they've always been great, knowledgeable. When you call them, you don't feel like they're just you know, like looking something up and reading you the description of something. They got knowledgeable people working there. It's really great. Great service, all that stuff. So we are harvesting off of the Harvest Lager strain. That's our house lager strain here. We'll usually get about 10 generations out of it before I buy a new one. But we love that strain. It's a real workhorse, low sulfur producer, and we're harvesting that for our brew day today. We want to make sure that we're treating that yeast well, good pitching rate, harvesting at the appropriate time to keep these nice, clean, vigorous fermentations going for these German lagers. So this whole thing comes down to being clean, trying to be precise, trying to be repeatable, changing one element at a time. You heard? All right. Next up, we're going to have a nutrient addition. We are going to have a Vorlauf addition, and then we are going to be knocking this kettle out, turning the steam off, whirlpooling it, and getting ready to send it to the fermenter through the heat exchanger. All right, so we are just about to wrap up the boil. Our amazing assistant brewer up there, Maggie, is going to be killing the steam here shortly, which will cut off heat to the kettle. And then we are going to begin whirlpooling our kettle. In order to do that, we open up the whirlpool valve and we open the kettle drain. And then when she kills that, we'll turn the pump on and it'll start circulating that wort in the kettle. Go ahead and cut the steam mag, boom. I'm gonna start that pump. For me personally, I've kind of changed some stuff on this through talking to some brewer buddies of mine, looking at some research. My one buddy was talking about how there's kind of like, you can get to a point when you're pumping your wort around like this, that if you pump too hard, you can get some shearing and actually create like potentially a haze issue downstream. Also listening some interesting stuff from the guys from Chuckanut, which arguably make some of the best lagers in the country, that they really try to minimize the amount of time between flame out and getting into the fermenter on yeast. I've reduced the amount of time that I whirlpool and also how hard I whirlpool. I'm only whirlpooling for 5 minutes now. I used to whirlpool for 10. And we have rotation there? Yeah. Sweet, yeah, just seal it up. Thank you. I'm really only whirlpooling for 5 minutes now, and then I'm going to cut it. I used to let it rest for longer, but I have it down to about 20 minutes that I'm gonna have it resting. And then we're just gonna go ahead and start slamming it out through the heat exchanger, getting it cold, getting it into the fermenter on yeast. So really trying to cut that time down. Anyways, I think that's it. We are now knocking out Prost, which is our Munich Dunkel. Things are looking quite good. We're knocking it out at just a hair under 50 degrees. We're knocking out at 48 degrees. I'm gonna flip this around and show you what we're tracking here. There's some water going on the ground right now. That is one of our water sources that is going through the heat exchanger. Just the big picture idea with the heat exchanger is we are sending cold water in one side and it is coming out hot because we are sending hot wort in one side and sending cold wort out the other, okay? So at this point right here with the red line, we are injecting oxygen into this nice dark brown beer. And technically we're at this point, and we are running through here. We've got a bunch of things going on today, so it looks a little bit like a mess. That line is going up to this yeast brink, which was formerly full of yeast, and we're pushing that wort through to the fermenter. We see the bucket bubbling from displacing all of the atmosphere inside the fermenter. Things are looking good. We just finished up knocking this kettle completely out, and I want to show you what the Whirlpool does. When we are done boiling the wort in the kettle after 90 minutes for this brew day. We pump wort around the outside edge of the kettle. It forms a kind of little vortex, but a swirling motion, but not some big dipping, you know, crazy vortex thing like that. And then we turn the pump off and we let it rest. The point is so we kind of get this big cone of hot material, protein, grain material, things like that. And I'm going to give you a look at that right now. All right, so this is what this looks like. This is, shoot, I'm going to try to get over that steam real quick. Maybe I need to be further up. This is this trube cone here in the kettle. And then you can see this outside edge. That's where I draw wort off of, where the flashlight's on right now. I use this little standpipe that's thrown over there. But you can see that it leaves all of the hops and protein stacked up in the center of the kettle. This is what the Whirlpool produces.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Adam Makes Beer. I've been really excited to show you what this Prost Brew Day looks like. We've called it Brew School because I really want to give you this, this immersive experience of being in the brewery with me. Hopefully you feel as if you had that experience. What you didn't see was the finishing of the beer. We let this ferment out at 50 degrees, slowly raising the temperature throughout, and then giving it a nice long cold lager. We're really pushing for 6-7 weeks on that. We feel like it really helps with the finished beer. It's just kind of the intangibles things on it, the crispness, the balance, all the small things that go into making these really austere beers kind of separate themselves from other versions of them. That's really what you want to be doing. These aren't huge, robust beers, so you really want to take the time for the cold lager to do all the small things right. So all the small, subtle components of this beer come together in just the right way. Right here, we have a can of Prost that I will be decanting. Here we go. Nice dark. It looks a little darker in this glass with the lighting and everything like that. It might actually even look a little bit stout-like, but it's not. If you put a light up to it, you can really get some lighter brown, even some amberish hue out of it. Foam stand is looking really nice. This is a beer that we do use that Tetra hop product on, which will add some bitterness, but also help to lift up the foam stand on it. So let's jump into the recipe on this and the tasting. One of the reasons I love this beer is you get this, it's a little bit more subtle. It doesn't have the roast character of a stout or anything like that, but you do get this light milk chocolate kind of toasty thing out of the malt coming off the beer. I wouldn't say much as far as hop nose on this beer, but then again, I don't really think you're supposed to be getting that anyhow. But man, I like this beer. To me, this is a year-round beer. I can drink this when it's hot. I can drink it in the cold winter months. It's just super satisfying. It is a smaller beer. We do this beer at 4.6%. And even though it's that small, it doesn't seem thin or lacking or anything. I do think that is in part due to a little bit higher residual sweetness in this beer. This beer does finish out at 10.14, so it does give it a little bit extra heft. And I don't think you want to take this beer too dry. I think it could make it seem a little too lean or a little too thin, but you might want to play around with that. For me, the sweet spot is finishing it out around 10.14. You get this nice round kind of milk chocolate, slightly coffee, but then it does dry out in the finish. And I think the drying out in the finish, even though we said that it has a little bit higher residual sweetness, I think it's a combination of the bitterness and some of the roast character working together to help lean this beer out a little bit. Let's jump into the grist bill for this. We're gonna go all percentages today. This is a big Weyermann beer for me. So it is 66.6% Barca Munich. It's 22.2% Weyermann Munich 2. It's 7.4% malted white wheat, and is 3.8% Carafa Special 2. I might have a couple of tenths off there somewhere, but you can do the math on it. Anyways, it's a really simple grist for this. You're going to notice there's no caramel or caramel style malts in it. I like to try to keep those out. If I did have them in there, this beer would probably need to be a little bit more bitter to hit the balance that I prefer. But we do hit a starting gravity of 1049 with this beer, and as I mentioned earlier, it does go down to 1014. In the mash, I'm looking to hit a mash rest of 154 degrees. That is a little bit on the higher side, so I will be creating a little bit more long chain sugar, non-fermentable sugar, but it's not jacked all the way up to 160 where you're going to be making this beer really unfermentable. We're looking at a total of 19 IBU in this beer. We get 15 out of it out of our 60-minute edition, and for this beer, I use 14 IBU of Warrior at 60 minutes, and then I do a 30-minute edition of Hersbrucker, German-grown Hersbrucker, for about another 5 IBU. I haven't done that beer without this edition, and I feel like it does give me a little bit more hop complexity. This is not a hop-forward beer, but as you dig into the pint, you might be able to find like a subtle amount of maybe the lightest suggestion of kind of noble hop flavor, kind of that earthy floral thing going on. But yeah, this is not something that I necessarily want to load the Whirlpool up with or anything like that with hops. So really just the 60 and 30-minute edition. As always with me, I am using Imperial's Harvest Lager yeast. Again, I absolutely love that strain. Super versatile, very easy to use in the brew house. As the name might suggest, it is easy to harvest and keep a nice strong pitch going on batch after batch. I mentioned earlier a fermentation profile that I tend to do where I will pitch a beer like this at 50 degrees. I'll allow it to rise to 52 degrees at like day 2. Usually by day 5, I set it up to 55. And then at day 8, I will turn the jacket off and allow that to slowly start ramping up to 65. When this beer has hit terminal gravity and I can run a VDK or diacetyl test on it to verify that all diacetyl is gone and the beer's cleaned itself up, I will seal up the tank, put head pressure on it, and drop the temperature of that tank down to 33. After 2-3 days, I will harvest yeast off of that for another batch of lager. And then over the consequential days, if that's a term, over the next several days, I'll continue to blow remaining yeast out of the bottom of that tank as we commence that lager period. And again, we're shooting really for 6 weeks, sometimes 7 weeks for that lager. Once I get the bulk of the yeast out of the beer, I will continue once or twice a week to blow a little bit more yeast down out of the bottom of it, just because I don't want it sitting on that yeast cake and kind of picking up some dead yeast flavors or aromas. It really is a style that I love. I have to say this might be one of my favorite all-round beer styles. Anytime I can get a Dunkel from somebody, I am getting it, tasting it, and comparing it to what we're doing. It really is a kind of a favorite child of mine there at the brewery. Anyhow, if there's any questions, processes that I didn't quite hit on this video, please leave questions below. Let me know if you like this kind of deep dive series that we did here. I know it was a little bit slower paced and sometimes people like faster things, but I wanted you to give that feeling of just shadowing me on a brew day. Leave any questions or comments that you have down below. I appreciate you kind of joining us here on this whole journey with this brew day for Prost, for this brew school that we did. Anyhow, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a subscribe, share, send it over to other craft beer loving folks that you know, and hope you have a great day. Until next time, cheers.